to win this fourth quarter basketball, 137 to 129.
It's time for Warriors Wrap-Up. We'll bring you into the locker room and hear from Coach Kerr and the players. Highlights from the game. Warriors Wrap-Up starts now.
Well, that was fun. The Warriors go out on the road after a couple of tough losses at home, and they knock off the Chicago Bulls. Final score 140 to 131. Welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up on a wonderful Friday evening here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. I had to feel good. Had to feel therapeutic for the Golden State Warriors and all of Dub Nation. Again, they earn a win on the road. They snap a losing streak, 140 to 131. Multiple players with great games for the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga. You can make a case all three of those guys played their best games of the season. Stephen Curry struggled to shoot the ball through three quarters, but he iced the game offensively in the fourth quarter. Golden State responded to one of their worst quarters of the season, and there's a number to pick from. The second quarter, they allowed 45 points, nearly all of those points coming in the final half of that quarter when Chicago just simply could not miss. They respond to that quarter by outscoring Chicago by 28 points in the third. They put up 48 in the third quarter alone. Most points the Warriors have scored in a single quarter this season. They kind of trade buckets in the fourth. It got a little bit hairy down the stretch, but then Stephen Curry took over, and the Golden State Warriors leave Chicago and spoil the Bulls' Ring of Honor night, their inaugural Ring of Honor. They inducted a number of legendary figures in their franchise into their Ring of Honor, including Steve Kerr, who was out there at halftime and not back in the locker room with his team. And the Warriors spoil the Ring of Honor night for the Chicago Bulls, and Golden State wins by a final score of 140 to 131. Feels good to have something positive to react to for a change here on Warriors Wrap-Up. Mark Randy with you. Want to hear from you guys all night. What does it feel like to get a win, and this kind of win where you saw so many positives from a number of individuals? Give me a call, 888-957-9570. That's the number to call. It's also the Comcast Business text line. I'm keeping an eye on that. And then, as always, we've got our YouTube chat, which is already going. Sidecar Tommy, Dublin Marge, Eve, I see you all. Good evening, Dublin Marge. Always appreciate you tuning in. I see your comment there on YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Good vibes from the Golden State Warriors tonight, and it was not pretty in that second quarter. But let's go all the way back to the beginning to kind of sort through how this game happened. It wasn't the cleanest start for the Golden State Warriors. Andrew Wiggins, I think, was the reason that the Warriors were really in this game for much of the first half. He was really good in the first quarter, and it almost seemed like Golden State made it a point to try to get him going. He took the first couple of shots for the Golden State Warriors, made the first one. It was a three-pointer, and maybe that was just a little bit of the confidence boost that he needed. I mean, you think back to what happened on Wednesday in the loss to the Pelicans. There were a couple of times where Andrew Wiggins, wide open in the corner, simply wouldn't shoot, and he would pass to a more covered teammate. Andrew Wiggins, they got him the ball early. He saw some shots go in, and I think that added to his confidence, and then he got going, kept the Warriors in the game in the first half. If it wasn't for Wiggins, Warriors could have easily been down by 20 points at halftime, considering how Chicago shot the ball. Wiggins was really good in the first half. Ultimately, his floor game, 17 points. He had 5 rebounds and 8 assists for Andrew Wiggins. He was really good passing the ball. Klay Thompson had 30 points. He got going in the third quarter when he just kind of went on a classic Klay tear from downtown. You look at what he did in the third quarter. Klay had 17 of his 30 in the third, 5 of 6 from the field, 5 of 5 from downtown. But sometimes you get in those classic Klay modes, right? And he kind of overshoots it, right? Like he'll get hot, and then he'll kind of shoot himself out of it because he'll go to the heat check, right, and time again, and he shoots some questionable shots. We didn't see that from Klay today. We did not, and I think this is a really big step forward for Klay Thompson and the Golden State Warriors because he was incendiary in that third quarter. 5 of 5 from downtown. But in that third, he still had 3 assists. On the night, Klay Thompson finished with 6 assists. He also had 6 rebounds. He was making all of the right passes. And as a team, I see this on the YouTube chat right now. Again, powered by First NorCal Credit Union, Double and Marge. Your second shout out already. That's got to be a record, Double and Marge. The Warriors, as a team in this game, 39 assists on 49 made buckets. 39 assists on 49 made buckets. And oftentimes, you know, in past Warrior years, you see that number and you're like, oh, well Steph had 9, right? And you got Sean Livingston off the bench and some of your other guard. You don't expect to get 9 from Andrew Wiggins and 6 from Klay Thompson. Those guys were making the right decision with the ball in their hands every single time. And I should correct myself. It was 8 for Andrew Wiggins, 8 assists, not 9. Steph did have 9. But 39 assists on 49 made buckets. The Golden State Warriors only committed 5 turnovers. If you look through the box score, only 3 players have a turnover next to their name. Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, and Trace Jackson-Davis each have 1. There were 2 team turnovers. So the Warriors, as a team, committed 5 turnovers, which was tied for a franchise low. The entire franchise, the entire history of the Golden State Warriors, not just the Golden State Warriors, the Philadelphia Warriors, in the entire history of the Warriors, 5 turnovers. They have never committed fewer than 5 turnovers in a game. They committed 5 turnovers today. But again, back to how this game happened. It was Andrew Wiggins early that kind of led the way for the Golden State Warriors. He hit that 3 to open the game. He got on the offensive glass, created some extra opportunities for the Warriors. He had a nice spin move into the paint off of a post-up, kick to Klay Thompson in the corner, a nice, strong, on-target pass. It was a made 3 for Klay Thompson. And then you kind of saw the Warriors defensively in that first quarter. I feel like they were as energetic, as focused, as composed on the defensive side of the ball as we've seen from them in a really long time. Now, it's not the highest bar to clear. In fact, the bar is relatively low because it has been pretty ugly on the defensive side of the ball for so much of this recent streak, like that homestand for the Golden State Warriors. But you saw hands in passing lanes. You weren't allowing Chicago to get offensive rebounds and second chances, and you were forcing turnovers. I mean, Chicago coming into this game, on average, they commit about 12 turnovers a game, tied for second fewest turnovers per game in the NBA. And the Warriors forced 5 turnovers in that first quarter. Now, Chicago ended up only committing 12 turnovers in the entire game, so they were right there on their average. But the Warriors were into this game defensively in the first quarter, forcing 5. And they got out in transition. They used those turnovers to get some easy buckets. Jonathan Kuminga had some points in transition. Andrew Wiggins had some points in transition. There was one moment where Andrew Wiggins, he defended a drag screen from the top of the key, so he was defending his man along the right wing. His man coming across the floor from the right wing up top with the ball in his hands, a drag screen coming from the opposite side to try to throw Wiggins off. He fought over it, and then it was going to be a pass back to the roller, the man who set that screen, and Andrew Wiggins recovered, got his hands up, knocked the ball away. It caromed over to Steph Curry, who pushed the tempo. Wiggins racing down the floor, got an easy lay-in. And that's the sort of thing that we haven't seen from the Warriors in general, but specifically from Andrew Wiggins. And that's what he was doing when this Warriors team was winning a championship in 2022. It was the defensive intensity, the defensive awareness, knocking balls free, and then it was getting out and running. And it's no surprise that this Warriors team looks entirely different, that they feel entirely different when their wing players are playing well. And it was the case for Andrew Wiggins. I'm talking mostly about him here because I thought he was the Warriors' best player in the first quarter. But the same could be said for Jonathan Kuminga, who did not start today, by the way, did close with Andrew Wiggins on the floor. That's interesting by itself. We can talk more about that here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. But when the Warriors' wings play good basketball, this team looks and feels entirely different. Now, they still did give up 131 points. This was not a good, at least not a consistently good defensive performance all game long, but I think you saw some positives in the first quarter. They were certainly there in the third quarter as well. The Warriors only allowed 20 points in the third. They buckled down defensively. Part of that was Chicago just missing some shots, just like how they made everything they took in the second quarter. But I think we saw some positive momentum for the Golden State Warriors on the defensive side of the ball. And I really feel like with the starting lineup change that Steve Kerr made today, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Dario Saric, and Kevon Looney, that was a move to try to get some defense going for the Warriors. You'd been starting three guards often, whether it was Chris Paul as the third guard before he fractured his hand, whether it was Brandon Pajemski as the third guard as recently as last time out for the Golden State Warriors. You saw the results on defense. It was not pretty. So the Warriors, I feel like they needed a little bit more size. You get that with Dario Saric at the 4, Kevon Looney at the 5, and then they kind of rolled the dice again with Andrew Wiggins at the 3. Before the game, I was a little surprised that Andrew Wiggins got the nod at the 3. I mean, I was previously saying I think Moses Moody might deserve a shot, but Moses Moody is now out with a grade 1 hamstring strain. He will miss this whole road trip and the first game the Warriors are back at Chase Center at least. So at least 5 games missed for Moses Moody. He'll be reevaluated in 10 days from now, which would put him out. Again, those 5 games, the 4 games of the road trip, including tonight, and at least one more when the Warriors return home. So maybe Steve Kerr's hand was forced a little bit to going back to Andrew Wiggins. And I think this is why I've probably been a little slower on the uptake to get to the blaming Steve Kerr portion of this season. I know there's a lot of fans that feel that way, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't. Steve Kerr has probably had, I think it's safe to say, the worst season of his NBA head coaching career with the Golden State Warriors. I think that's safe and very fair to say, and I'm not sure you're going to get many to argue that. I mean, you could throw out the season that was shortened by the pandemic, but you're without Steph for that entire season, basically. Of course, you're without Klay. You had the fiasco, which was James Wiseman's rookie year. Like it wasn't good. All of that. There's some other ones you could throw out there. But I think this has probably been, and he would probably agree if you were to ask him, probably the worst job that Steve Kerr has done so far this season. But when you see how Andrew Wiggins played today, you see how Jonathan Kuminga responded when he came off the bench, you saw what Klay Thompson did, and Steve Kerr has just continued to show belief and confidence, specifically in Klay Thompson. And he did the same thing tonight by putting Andrew Wiggins back in the starting lineup. The last time Wiggins played in the starting lineup, the last time Wiggins started, 2 games ago, that was the Raptors game. He was a minus 29. He scored 3 points. Arguably the worst game of Andrew Wiggins' career. Like, he was that ineffective. And Steve Kerr willing to trust him to put him back in the starting lineup, and he responds with arguably the best game of his season this time out. And it's not just about points. 17 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds. He was active defensively. He was all over the floor for the Golden State Warriors. If you were to, say, go in a coma after Game 6 of the 2022 NBA Finals, say the last game you saw Andrew Wiggins play was Game 6 of the 2022 NBA Finals where the Warriors knocked off the Celtics in Boston to win another championship, you were in a coma after that game and you woke up tonight for this game, you'd feel like, that's the normal Andrew Wiggins. Like, that's what it felt like. For the first time almost this entire season, you finally felt like you got that kind of Andrew Wiggins back. Now, who knows if this is something that's going to continue? We'll find out tomorrow. The Warriors got to go to Milwaukee tonight. They'll take on the Bucks in the back end of a back-to-back. The Warriors, by the way, have actually been pretty decent on back-to-back so far this season. But we'll see if this is a sign of things to come for Andrew Wiggins. If it is, that is a major positive. But to get back to what I'm talking about with Steve Kerr, I feel like this is where he deserves a little bit of credit, and it's something that I've been trying to get across on a number of these shows when kind of the popular notion is to say fire Steve Kerr. The Warriors are only going to be good this season if their wing players start playing better. The Warriors don't have another option, unless they go out and make a major trade, unless Andrew Wiggins plays better. So in Steve Kerr's mind, the best shot that the Warriors have is keep giving Wiggins chances. Maybe that doesn't mean starting lineup chances, but keep giving him chances, because if he does figure it out and it starts to click again, then this Warriors team looks entirely different like it was tonight. I know it was just the Bulls. The Bulls, though, have been playing really good basketball of late. They were 5 of 14 to start the season, entering tonight 13-7. 13-7 in their last 20 entering this game. So a quality basketball team. Billy Donovan has the Bulls playing well. They're mostly healthy. And they're playing good basketball, and they wanted to win in front of their home crowd, in front of a crowd that was celebrating Ring of Honor night in Chicago, and the Warriors shut that down. So a good performance today for the Golden State Warriors. It is not... You can think of this as a stepping stone. I don't think this is a major turning point. We'll get to that point if the Warriors continue that during this road trip, but certainly a step in the right direction for the Golden State Warriors. And let's go out to the phone lines and hear from some of you guys. I want to know how Dub Nation feels. Was this a win where you feel that the positive momentum building for the Golden State Warriors, or is this just a win over, a team right around 500 with a similar record as the Golden State Warriors? After tonight, the Bulls now 18-22, the Warriors now 18-20. Is this just a ho-hum win, or is this something where you feel like the Warriors can build off of it and maybe turn their season around? I mean, the vibes just felt a little bit different. There was that moment in the third quarter after Klay Thompson started going inferno mode, right? He made like 4 threes in I think it was like the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. And then Kuminga kind of got rolling, and he had that and one where he got around, I think it might have been Kobe White. He got around Kobe White, then went up against Nikola Vucevic and kind of powered his way through Vucevic, got the foul, and made the bucket. And you can see Steph Curry in the left wing raise both of his arms into the sky and flex. And it felt like, I'm sure you couldn't really hear it on the TV broadcast, but I'm sure he let out like a primal scream as well in that moment. It kind of felt like a celebration, not entirely fitting of that moment, right? But it's just a release of so much pent-up frustration and anger and energy, and finally you feel things going well for the first time in what feels like months. It's what it feels like. I mean, the first thing I said when I came on here to begin Warriors Wrap-Up was, feels good to talk about something positive for a change. It's been a while, so I can understand why Steph reacted that way in that moment, but it felt like a reaction more fitting of like clinching a playoff series. Or, I mean, he probably had a similar reaction to when the Warriors won their second title with Kevin Durant, the third of this run. That was kind of ho-hum as titles go, but that was a big moment where you see Steph Curry celebrate on the court like that after an and one by Jonathan Kuminga. That felt like an emotional release, not just for Steph Curry, who we've seen is incredibly frustrated over the last couple of weeks. It seemed like a bit of a release for the Golden State Warriors as well. All right, out to the phone lines we go. Give me a call, 888-957-9570. I want to hear from you guys on this Friday night. What'd you think of the Warriors win tonight? They knock off the Chicago Bulls. Final score 140-131. Up next is Big Smooth in Oakland. Big Smooth, what'd you think of that Warriors win tonight? You're on 95.7 The Game.
Yeah, it was a good win, positive, right, step in the right direction. However, I hope it continues, but I'm scratching my head like, okay, Wiggins, so if you were coming off an injury, this would make sense. Okay, he's getting better. We don't know. You can do that. You couldn't do it the other day, but you can do it now. Can you do it again? Let's check it out. I don't know. The defense, it still made me feel a little uneasy. He had a 16-point lead that dwindled really quick, and you needed Steph Curry to save the day. You should not have needed that. I mean, Jack LaVine was scoring buckets again, like it was a layup line. So that'll hopefully get better once Draymond comes back, kind of solidifies the defense a little bit more. But I'm gonna tell you what really bothered me tonight. It was the play when I forget who. DeRozan went up. Davis blocked it. It was clearly going up, clearly. And everyone is saying review. And Steve Kerr just kind of standing there like, duh, what should I do? It was clearly not a goaltend. Why don't you know that? But we know it. I don't understand what his review process is. You just gave them 2 points when they're cutting that lead. That can't happen, man. That's a coaching error. When they go back and look at that film, that ball, it wasn't even close. How did you miss that? Please explain that to me. I don't get it.
Yeah, good question, Big Smooth. I don't have the answer for you. I imagine the Warriors have one of their assistant coaches, and they have a lot of assistant coaches, one of them probably on the second row of seats behind the bench, dedicated to checking out the replay on the iPad or whatever device that they have over there and seeing if it's worth a review. Steve Kerr obviously ultimately has veto control, or even if the coach in charge of saying yes or no, review that, says no, Steve Kerr could say yeah. I don't have the answer there for you there. I mean, my only guess is that Steve Kerr wanted to save that potentially for a key moment in the fourth quarter, as he tends to do. I tend to be of the mind, if you have one that you know absolutely you can win, that's going to save you 2 points or save you like a fourth foul on a star player in the third, whenever you have that moment, you should take it, because the moment that you're waiting for might never happen. And that's happened a lot for the Golden State Warriors. How many times does Steve Kerr get to 2 minutes to go in regulation, Warriors down 5, and they can feel the game slipping away, and they still have the challenge in their pocket, and he challenges one that's certainly not going to be overturned, because at that point it's use it or lose it, but he just uses it as essentially a timeout. But I'm of the mind, if you have something that's going to take 2 points off the board, give you 2 points, or save a foul on a key player that's in foul trouble, use it. So I think I would agree with you, Big Smooth. I think Steve Kerr should have used it there, but the good news is it did not cost the Warriors in this one, as they ultimately win 140-131. But you're right, Big Smooth, it did get a little bit hairy. They were trading buckets in the fourth quarter, and then Steph Curry took over and kind of iced the game. After he was relatively absent offensively, at least in terms of making shots through the first 3 quarters, he was effective passing the ball all night long, finished with 9 assists. But good to see Steph Curry get going offensively as well, because he's been in a little bit of a slump now for a couple of weeks. So good to see him get going in that fourth quarter. All right, back to the phone lines here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Give me a call after this Warriors win 140-131, 888-957-9570. Up next is Ryan in Oakland. What's up, Ryan? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up with Mark Randy on 95.7 The Game. How you doing, Ryan?
Good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. What'd you think of that Warriors win tonight?
Man, I'm just grateful, to be honest. I've been watching the Warriors since our first championship, and Steve Kerr and everything, and I feel like as a Warrior fan, I feel like a lot of Warrior fans from listening to the radio station has lost faith in our big three, Steph, Klay, and Dre, and our main head coach, Steve Kerr. And I feel like these guys are all Hall of Fame ballot people. And it's like, though we're going through these tough times, it's like you got to take a step back and realize how much we've accomplished with these guys and not lose faith in them that quick. Like, we're witnessing greatness with these guys. And though we've had a lot of success, it's also good to see us struggle, see these Hall of Famers struggle, and see what we're going to do about it. Because I think that in all is all just a learning lesson. As a Warriors fan for a long time, I feel like I'm always going to keep the faith with Steve Kerr, Dre, Klay, and Steph until the day is over.
Yeah, Ryan, I mean, I appreciate your belief in this core. I will say I feel like the changing of the opinion for most people has been relatively warranted. I mean, this season has been incredibly ugly, very ugly. And you can kind of I feel like the way that Steph Curry addressed the media after the loss on Wednesday, second consecutive blowout loss at home, it kind of felt like he was ready to have the conversation about the future of this team potentially without the core together. And that's just my read on the situation. I mean, he brought up the definition of insanity when asked about the trade deadline. We can't keep expecting different results when doing the same things over and over again. And the same things being the same roster and the same players. And he was asked about the booing, and Steph Curry said, well, there's nothing to cheer for. We deserve to be booed. I'm booing myself on the bench. Like, it felt like a little bit of I don't know, an emotional change for Stephen Curry, almost like he was holding out hope and was resigned to the fact that maybe major changes now need to happen. But today was a step in the right direction for sure. Now, it's just one game, and I'm trying really hard not to overreact because I'm a little bit starved, honestly, for some positivity here. As much as tuning in for, like, I don't know, train wreck radio is fun, it's not fun to talk about. It really isn't. And it's kind of depressing. And I feel the same way as most of you out there. I mean, this is the team I grew up watching, has provided some of the best moments of my sports watching life. And over the last couple of weeks, it's been depressing. But tonight felt really good. Now, tonight was not without its issues and its faults. I mean, think back to that second quarter. I'm going to bring up my notes here, and I'll give you these stats here. So the Golden State Warriors led 48-41 with 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. 48-41. Chicago ultimately closes the quarter in the final 7 minutes on a 34-14 run. They put up 34 points in the final 7 minutes of the second quarter to take a 13-point lead into the halftime break, 75-62. Of those 34 points, again, all in the final 7 minutes of the quarter, 17 of those points came in the final 2 minutes and 22 seconds of the half. Chicago scored 17 points in 2 minutes and 22 seconds. How the hell is that even possible? It makes no sense. They scored 45 points in a quarter, 34 points over the final 7 minutes of a quarter, and 17 points in the final 2 minutes and 22 seconds of a quarter. And they turn what was a 7-point deficit into a 13-point lead in 7 minutes of basketball. They build the 75-62 lead in the third, and then the role was completely reversed in the third quarter. But a quick note on the Bulls in the first half there with 75 points. The Warriors now have allowed 70 or more points in 3 consecutive first halves and 4 of their last 5. You gave up 70 at home against Denver. The low point, or I guess the high point for the Warriors, the low point total allowed 46 points against Detroit, but then 76 against Toronto, 73 against New Orleans, and 75 tonight against Chicago. 3 first halves in a row, and 4 of the last 5, the Warriors have allowed 70 or more points. That's crazy. That is crazy, but things switched in the third quarter when the Golden State Warriors outscored Chicago 48-20. That's when Klay Thompson got going. He came out immediately, hit back-to-back three-pointers. Looney had a dunk off the gravity by Steph Curry, which drew the double team. There was a 10-2 run 2 minutes into the third quarter for the Warriors to get back within 5 points. Saric hit a jumper, a deep 2. Klay made another 3, a 16-4 Warriors lead. Warriors get back within a single point. And then they started getting stops. Chicago missed 5 shots in the entire second quarter. The Bulls missed 5 shots in the first 3 minutes and 15 seconds of the third quarter. The Warriors could not buy a stop in the second quarter, and then they got them, and they strung them together in the third quarter. And I think that's where this really all starts for the Golden State Warriors. We can talk about Klay, 30 points and 5 3-pointers in the third quarter, and Jonathan Kuminga making 4 3-pointers. We can talk about the offense. I've said time and time again, I have no concerns about the offense, even when Steph Curry is going through a bit of a shooting slump, at least for his standards, a shooting slump. The Warriors are still putting up 110, 120, tonight 140 on the board. Tonight was a little bit different because they had a really good shooting game. But even when the Warriors' offense doesn't look feel look good, feel smooth, like they're still putting up a bunch of points. So I'm not really that concerned about the Warriors offense, but what led to the Warriors putting up 48 points in the third quarter tonight? It was the defense. And it was Jonathan Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins getting out in transition and running. And it's something the Warriors have not done almost anything of so far this season. Last year, the Golden State Warriors, almost to a fault, not almost, to a fault, they were too aggressive in transition. They pushed the ball too much. The Golden State Warriors have overcorrected. They are not aggressive enough pushing the ball. And a lot of that is because of the struggles of Andrew Wiggins. But tonight, the Warriors got 19 fast break points. A number of them were off of steals, deflections, and dunks, but oftentimes off of just a missed shot, even a made basket by Chicago. The Warriors relentlessly push the ball. And it's not always going to result in a bucket in transition, but what pushing the ball does is it forces Chicago to kind of be scattered defensively, and they can't pick up, they can't match up man-to-man. You get mismatches. And then off of kind of the secondary effect of pushing the ball, you throw it into the post to Jonathan Kuminga, who's matched up by Kobe White, who he should be able to take to task every time in the post, and he does. He gets an and one. Steph Curry flexes, and you get momentum going. So it's not just about getting those fast break dunks where Kuminga is soaring through the air, but it's about putting your opposing defense into awkward situations on their defensive side of the floor. And it's what the Warriors do when they push the ball, and it's much easier to push the ball when you're getting stops defensively. So really, for the Warriors, the issues on the defensive side of the ball, if you correct those even just a little bit, not only are you going to be allowing fewer points per game, you're going to be holding opponents, to worse shooting percentages. You're going to be getting more easy looks and mismatches down low that Wiggins could take advantage of. He did that today. That Jonathan Kuminga could take advantage of. That Steph Curry could take advantage of if he gets a big matched up on him. So for me, that third quarter for the Golden State Warriors, as much as we talk about Klay shooting and the 48 points, it was about the defensive end of the floor and the Warriors deciding to push the ball off those stops. There was one moment where Brandon Pajemski, off of a made basket in this game, beat everyone down the floor, finished with kind of a push shot from inside the free throw line, and won. The Warriors need to push the ball more. They did that tonight, and that was a big reason why they outscored Chicago 48-20 in the third quarter of this one. A really impressive performance by the Golden State Warriors, and I think the defense in that third quarter certainly deserves a shout-out because even if the Warriors are putting up 40-plus points in a quarter, we've seen it time and time again so far this season. Warriors put up 40. Well, guess what? The opponent put up 45. And after all of your effort offensively, the lead only grows. Your deficit grows. That was not the case in the third quarter tonight for the Golden State Warriors, and it had to feel really, really good. I thought something that was interesting in this one as well for the Golden State Warriors was the Warriors decided to, as they have for a lot of this season, this is mostly about Steve Kerr, you didn't see a lot of Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga on the floor together. And that's kind of been the sticking point of the last couple of weeks for the Golden State Warriors is, can Kuminga and Wiggins play together? Can they play together? Because if they can, and if you're effective with both of them on the floor, and Wiggins starts playing a little bit better, and Kuminga is all right with his role, I'd be interested in Kuminga's honest thoughts about not starting today. He closed, and he played, he played 24 minutes and 16 seconds off the bench. I'd be curious in Jonathan Kuminga's honest feelings about not starting today and ultimately his role in this game. That's kind of an aside. But the Warriors didn't really use those two on the court together. They got some moment together. I think it was in the third quarter. And I think over like a 3-minute span, they were +3. So it didn't sink you at all. In fact, you outscored the opponent when those two were on on the court together. But that was the only stretch that they played until the closing stretch. You put both of them out there, and they helped you win that game down the stretch. The Warriors in this game closed with, let's see, I have it here on my notes. The Warriors closed with Steph Curry, along with Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Dario Saric. Over the final 3 minutes of the game, Klay, right off the bench, hit a three. Klay missed a three following that. Wiggins, his effort on the glass led to a second-chance Curry mid-range bucket. Then there was a great decision by Klay where he thought about a catch-and-shoot deep three from the right wing. Thought better of it, drove past his defender, easy layup. Curry hit another mid-range jumper. That was kind of the final dagger, final nail in the coffin. He hit a couple of free throws. Ultimately, the Warriors win 140-131. But Steve Kerr going to that five-man lineup. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Dario Saric over the final 3 minutes. Interesting. And it worked. Those five played well together, and they helped the Warriors earn a 140-131 win over the Chicago Bulls. Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. Want to hear from you guys. Give me a call. 888-957-9570. It's nice to see the Warriors show some fight. And I think that's where I was disappointed the most in this team over the last couple of weeks. It's not that I doubted their desire to go out and win and play well. But I was disappointed in when things started going poorly. It just felt to me that they were all right, kind of laying down a little bit. That's how it felt to me watching, here at the station. And you think back to what this Warriors team has been about this entire era. They have always responded to the critics. They have always responded to the doubters, right? Like, what was the conversation after in 2015 when the Warriors won their first title? The conversation was, well, they're a jump shooting team. They're not going to be able to do that again. Well, it was Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving were hurt in the finals. You got an easy path to a championship. And then what did the Warriors do? They win 73 games in the regular season. Steph Curry, a second consecutive MVP, and a unanimous MVP, the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. And now I know how that season ended. It was not pretty, blowing a 3-1 lead, but they responded to the critics who said they couldn't do it again. They were an anomaly, a flash in the pan, right? And they win 73 games in the regular season. Then they get Kevin Durant, and the whole story, the whole Kevin Durant era is, well, this is unfair. You've got a stacked group. The only reason he got him is because Draymond Green went and called him in the car crying after losing Game 7, right? That's how the story goes. And then the Warriors have a couple of down years, and the whole conversation around Steph Curry, around the Golden State Warriors after Kevin Durant leaves is, oh, this is like a fake dynasty. They won one, but it was because of injuries. The other two that they got was thanks to Kevin Durant. Steph Curry, yeah, a great player, but doesn't have a finals MVP. And you get all that pent-up frustration, all of that chatter. The petty kings, as Dublin Marge says on our YouTube chat. Steph Curry sees and hears everything. Draymond Green obviously is aware of a lot. Klay Thompson, while he doesn't admit to it, certainly is aware of the conversation, at least about him. And then Klay Thompson comes back from the injury, and the Warriors win the championship in 2022. And they immediately let everyone know, like, I proved you wrong. Steph Curry, the second that they win the championship, the second that he wins his first finals MVP, he screams, like, what they gonna say now, right? Like, this is to you, doubters. This is to you, haters. We did this without Kevin Durant now. So what is your critique going to be now? The Warriors have always responded to those doubters, to those people who don't believe in them, to those people who think that this dynasty is over. And what has disappointed me more than anything else during this stretch of play is it felt like that fight wasn't really there. You get down against Toronto, and you kind of rolled over. It's what it felt like. Maybe you didn't, but it's what it felt like. Same thing against the Pelicans. You kind of gave up. That's what it felt like to me. And that's what disappointed me more than anything else. It felt like the Warriors didn't have that fight like they have had their entire careers. It was good to see it back today. It was incredible to see it back today. The second quarter tonight was really bad. It felt like he pulled it out of that Toronto game, pulled it out of that Pelicans game, but then they come back in the third quarter and put together their best quarter of the season, outscoring the Bulls in Chicago 48-20 in the quarter. It felt like the Warriors got a little bit of that fight back tonight, and that is a huge, huge positive for the Golden State Warriors. Now we'll see how it continues, but this was a step in the right direction. All right, back to the phone lines we go on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you here. Give me a call, 888-957-9570. Up next is Pete in San Ramon. What's up, Pete? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
Hey, Mark, good evening. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir, Pete.
One thing I've been listening and hearing too much of is people talking about Andrew Wiggy and Jonathan Kuminga can't play together, and they ought to then be traded in a package to some team together. Anybody saw that game tonight saw those two guys play with each other, and it felt pretty good, y'all. That's it.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Pete. I will say they didn't play a lot on the floor together, but when they did, it was positive. It was positive. I think Steve Kerr might be willing to go back to that a little bit more now as this road trip continues, because that is the sticking point. Pete, I would be shocked if both of those guys are traded, but it does still feel like the Warriors have a little bit of a redundancy with those two guys. Now, if they play like they played tonight, those are both positive pieces, and you can make it work with both of them on your roster. The Moses Moody injury complicates things a little bit, although it is not serious. It's a grade 1 strain of the calf for Moses Moody. He will miss at least 5 games. He'll be reevaluated in 10 days. So, Pete, I appreciate the call. I don't think both of them would be traded, but you're right. I mean, it was a major positive step for both of those guys tonight. Look at what they did. Andrew Wiggins, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. He was 8 of 13 from the field. The only shots, or 4 of the 5 shots he missed were 3-pointers. And then Jonathan Kuminga, 24 points, a couple of points off of his career high. He had 5 rebounds and assist, 9 of 12 from the field, and 4 of 4 from downtown. And I think this is also where we need to think about what would make this Warrior team best, right? Because we can talk all we want about Jonathan Kuminga's potential, and he certainly has the most untapped potential of any Warrior right now. No one is arguing that. Like, who of the Warriors that isn't like a veteran who've realized their full potential? So of, Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody and Trace Jackson Davis and Brandon Pajemski, who has the most potential? Who has the ability to be the best player? Like, it's Kuminga, no doubt about it, right? But who here is confident that Jonathan Kuminga is ready to realize that full potential and be one of the main cogs? That might not be the best way to call it. Like, to be a number 2, a number 3 option on a championship team. So I think where Jonathan Kuminga at this stage of his career can be his most effective, it is the role that he played tonight, which is one of the first, if not the first guys off the bench, and you play incredibly hard for 24 minutes. And the key to all of this is Andrew Wiggins playing better. And he was that tonight. Again, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, best floor game of the season for Andrew Wiggins, and he really was the reason the Warriors were in this in the first half. But if you really look at how this Warriors roster is constructed, I think the best role for Jonathan Kuminga in a perfect world, like if Wiggins, this is just a flash in the pan and he goes back to not playing inspired, struggling defensively, doesn't have the energy, then the conversation changes entirely. But if the Warriors get this Wiggins, that as they got tonight, for the rest of the season, there is no doubt in my mind that the best role for Jonathan Kuminga, for him to be the most effective in his minutes, and for the Warriors to get as much out of him as they can, it is in the role he had tonight. That's Jonathan Kuminga's best spot as it currently stands. A year down the road, 2 years down the road, certainly 3 years down the road, he will be a different player. But right now, where he is at his best is he comes in off the bench and he gives the Warriors a spark offensively and defensively, and that's what he did tonight. He would get his hands in the passing lane, run out in transition, get a dunk on a nice pass from Stephen Curry. He would fly in for a rebound. He would make his open three-pointers. He got lucky on one from the corner. It bounced high off the rim and then fell. But this is, I think, the textbook game from Jonathan Kuminga, that when Steve Kerr and this Warriors front office was thinking about how they hope this season goes, this is what it was. This is what the Warriors want. You get solid contributions from your starters, including Andrew Wiggins, and then Jonathan Kuminga comes off the bench and absolutely controls the game with the ball in his hands. And a development for Jonathan Kuminga that I love to see, is he is relentlessly attacking the post when he has the height advantage. Whether it was Kobe White on him tonight, a couple of times it was DeMar DeRozan, even Zach LaVine. When he has the height advantage, the strength advantage, he is calling for the ball in the post. He's demanding the ball on the post, and he's getting it. And he is efficiently scoring from that position, whether it is a spinning fadeaway from 10 feet out. He's gotten pretty proficient at that shot. Whether it's, a pump fake and then a drive-by or a spin to the paint and a right-handed finish or a reverse, he's brought that out a couple of times. Whether it's the jumper from the baseline about 15 feet out, he's pretty good at that as well. Whether it is any of those things, Kuminga has done all of that really well. He did it all really well tonight. And I think that's where Jonathan Kuminga's ideal role for this Warriors team should be. But again, it all comes back to Andrew Wiggins. It all comes back to Andrew Wiggins. And maybe this conversation shifts entirely in less than 3 weeks now. We are 3 weeks and 6 days away. One less day than 4 weeks. We're 27 days away from the trade deadline. Maybe this conversation changes by then because perhaps Andrew Wiggins is traded. Maybe multiple Warriors players are traded. But with this current roster construction, the Warriors need Andrew Wiggins to play better. And he did tonight. And what that allows is it allows Jonathan Kuminga to come off the bench. It takes the pressure off of him. He's able to be a defender. He can get his hands in passing lanes. He can block shots. He can get out in transition. He can cut. I can't count the number of times he timed his cuts to the hoop perfectly tonight. He finishes down low when he has height advantage. Like, this was the dream scenario for the Warriors' wings tonight. And you pair that with 30 points from Klay Thompson on 7 of 15 from downtown. Klay, Wiggins, Kuminga. You could argue each of them played their best game of the season tonight. And if the Warriors get anything like that from their wings, they're going to win more games than they lose, and they're going to be a threat in the West. If those three guys play like they did tonight, you don't have to play this good every single night, but if they play like that, the Warriors will be a threat in the West. And I'm seeing it now on the YouTube chat as well. YouTube.com/957thegame. It's powered by First NorCal Credit Union. There was a stretch in the fourth quarter that I wanted to make sure I got to. So the Warriors called a timeout after the Bulls went on a 10-0 run in the fourth quarter. It cut the lead down to 116 to 110. The Warriors were up 16, and things were feeling really good, right? 116 to 110. Oh, sorry, the Warriors were up 116 to 100. You're up by 16 points. And then a 10-0 Chicago run over about 2 minutes and 15 seconds of game time. Warriors call a timeout. After the timeout, the Warriors go on the floor with Steph, Podziemski, Wiggins, Šarić, and Looney. First possession out of the timeout, Andrew Wiggins, a push shot from the baseline to beat the shot clock buzzer. The possession really wasn't going anywhere, kind of a wild Podziemski drive, found Wiggins. Wiggins barely timed to even catch and shoot. A push shot, it goes in. Warriors lead is back up to 8. Off of that made bucket, Kobe White of the Bulls, who was incredible in this game, specifically in that second quarter, he pushes the ball the other way. Wiggins, after making the shot, chases him down from behind in a LeBron-style block from behind, sends it off the backboard. The Warriors go the other way. Ultimately, Curry misses a 3, but Šarić got the offensive rebound and gets fouled. That sequence for the Golden State Warriors, it stabilized them, and it was all Andrew Wiggins. The bucket to beat the shot clock buzzer and the block on the other end, chasing down the athletic and quick Kobe White from behind. We have not seen a two-play sequence, offense to defense, like that from Wiggins this year, and to see that tonight, a major positive, and it's why I can't help but feel like the Warriors might have unlocked a little something from Andrew Wiggins. That sequence, I think, perfectly encapsulates the game that Andrew Wiggins had tonight. He wasn't, he didn't even score 20 points. 17 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, had a steal, had that block I just talked about. An incredible floor game for Andrew Wiggins. And for my money, the best game he's had this season. Not his high-scoring game, not particularly close, actually. But all around, the game from Andrew Wiggins on both ends, looking like the Wiggins the Warriors had in that 2022 playoff run. I thought Andrew Wiggins had his best game of the year tonight. He was phenomenal. He was really good in this one for the Golden State Warriors. All right, 888-957-9570. That's the number to call here on Warriors Wrap-Up. I'm also keeping an eye on the Comcast Business text line. The same number there, 888-957-9570. The 510 here on the Comcast Business text line saying, pushing the ball also sometimes gets you to play 4-on-5 while the opponents are arguing with the ref, which happens a lot in today's basketball. And he says that's also what happens against the Warriors a lot. You're right. The Warriors tend to shoot themselves in the foot. At least they have a lot this season. They don't get back on defense, whether it's because you're arguing with the ref, you're down on the floor trying to sell a call that you didn't get, you're just unwilling to run back. The Warriors were doing that tonight, and the Warriors need to take advantage when opponents do that throughout the rest of the season, and they were able to do that in this one tonight. Let's see, what else here on the YouTube chat? YouTube.com/957thegame. This was a funny moment in this one tonight. Yada Mean, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, talking about Kerr at the Bulls Ring of Honor ceremony. It was kind of an awkward moment, and I don't know how many of you guys are on Warriors Twitter, but I could kind of predict what Warriors Twitter was going to be like and sound like when NBC Sports Bay Area, the Warriors television broadcast partner, showed Steve Kerr on the court in Chicago during the ceremony while his team was in the locker room just after giving up a 45-point second quarter. But Steve Kerr is just sitting there while, those great Chicago Bulls are being introduced and applauded and inducted into the Chicago Bulls Ring of Honor. It included Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman and all those greats. Steve Kerr was among them inducted. But the Warriors had just given up 45 points in a quarter. You were down by 13 points at half, in a half where you felt like you were the better team for the majority of that half, and it felt like, here we go again. And then Steve Kerr is just smiling out there on the court without his team, while his team is in the locker room. Who knows what's going on in there? I'm actually really curious, what was the conversation? What was the conversation in the Warriors locker room during halftime when Steve Kerr wasn't there? Like, who gave a speech? Something had to happen, right? Did Draymond Green in his street clothes, did he light into the team? Did he light a spark? Did Steph Curry get vocal? We talked a lot about how his leadership, Steph Curry's leadership, is kind of maligned nationally. Stephen A. Smith, he's come out and defended his comments, but certainly didn't sit well with the Golden State Warriors about Steph Curry's leadership. Did he say something? And now I'm seeing all the texts and the chats on the YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Brandon says, keep Kerr out at the half again. And that's essentially what Warriors Twitter was at halftime when Steve Kerr was out there on the court celebrating with the other Bulls Ring of Honor inductees, and the Warriors were mulling over a 45-point quarter that they allowed in the second, and then they come out and they outscore Chicago 48-20 in the third. It was kind of a funny moment. But I'll be looking for, I don't know, Marcus Thompson or Anthony Slater or anyone who might have some insight on what went down at halftime, because halftime ended up being a turning point for the Golden State Warriors in this one. And that was really needed. Really, really needed, because the Warriors, again, they gave up 45 points in the second quarter, and it felt like we're trending towards a third consecutive blowout where you just can't stop anybody. And then the Warriors turned it around. They outscore Chicago 48-20 in the third, and they only allow 56 points in the second half. If the Warriors allow 56 points in the second half, in any half, on a consistent basis moving forward, they're going to win a number of games, because the offense is not an issue. I mean, tonight the Warriors committed 5 turnovers as a team. 5 turnovers as a team. Tied for the franchise record. No Golden State Warriors team in history has allowed or has given up, has turned the ball over less than 5 times in a single game. The Warriors turned it over 5 times today, and they put up 140 points. As a team, they shoot 52% from the field, 42% from downtown. And one of the stats that I have circled here on my box score, 39 assists on 49 made buckets. 39 assists on 49 made buckets. And I think the overarching theme from this one for the Warriors tonight, it is, there was the feeling of, I don't know if chemistry is right, because by all accounts and all of the reporting that has been done, whether it's, as I said earlier, Marcus Thompson or Anthony Slater or Tim Kawakami, despite the struggles and despite all of the outside noise and the talk of trades, and Wiggins might be on his way out, and you got Kuminga multiple times voicing at least some frustration with his role. There's been reports that Moses Moody and his camp are also a little upset. Despite all of that, it feels, or it sounds like, maybe it doesn't feel like, but it sounds like the Golden State Warriors haven't really had a chemistry issue. It feels still like this is a group that loves each other. Anyone within the team is going to say, like, yeah, we love all these guys. It's a great group of guys. Like, they're going to give you all the cliches. But even reporters, trusted reporters who are not sugarcoating anything, it still, from them, sounds like this is a positive, upbeat group that is still together and is not turning on each other. But it hasn't always felt that way from the outside. But tonight, it felt that way from the outside. The vibes were back. The vibes were back in this one for the Golden State Warriors. I mean, again, think to that third quarter. The Warriors are in the middle of that 48-20 point quarter, a 28-point advantage in 12 minutes of basketball. You had Klay Thompson raining threes from all over the place. You had Jonathan Kuminga coming in off the bench and beating everyone down the floor and posting up Kobe White time and time again and getting buckets. And there was one specific play where I think it was Steph Curry passed the ball into Wiggins to the left block. Wiggins got double-teamed because the Bulls were realizing what was coming, because Kuminga had hurt them time and time again from that spot. He gets past the first defender. I believe it was Kobe White. And then Nikola Vucevic is there, the big 7-footer for the Bulls. And Kuminga goes right at him, jumps into him, draws the foul, and as he's falling down after the foul, manages to to summon the strength to get the ball up off the backboard, and it falls in for a 3-point play. And Steph Curry kind of standing along the left wing, celebrating like he just won a playoff series. Like that was a game-clinching, series-clinching bucket. It just felt like a release, and it felt like a bit of a turning point for the Golden State Warriors. Now, tomorrow, maybe it's back to same old for the Warriors. It might be. It very well might be. But tonight was positive, and for the first time in a while, you had those positive Warrior third quarter vibes. Like, I mean, the last time we really felt that, I suppose it was the game against the Nuggets where the Warriors built that 18-point lead. And they did that with an incredible third quarter run. They kind of sustained it into the fourth quarter, and they ultimately fell apart the final 6:45 of that fourth quarter against Denver. But the Warriors got that kind of vibe back in the third quarter in this game, and we'll see if they can hold on to it. They haven't in the past, but we'll see if they can hold on to it in this one. One other thing here before we do get to a couple pieces of business at the end, I wanted to talk about, I think, the Warriors' strategy defensively in the second quarter. It was a little bit confounding, and that was obviously the number one negative for Golden State in this game. The offense was incredible. You score 140 points. Klay Thompson had 30. Jonathan Kuminga was a couple of points off of a career high. He had 24 points. Steph Curry got going in the fourth quarter. He had 27. Andrew Wiggins had 17. Saric was effective as usual. He had 12 points. Trace Jackson-Davis had 13 off the bench. Like, the offense was really good in this game. But the defense still, despite a really positive third quarter, I think a relatively positive first quarter defensively, you still give up 131 points. And Draymond Green returning will likely help that. Draymond Green could play tomorrow. We don't know that. He could play tomorrow. We haven't heard from Steve Kerr or the Warriors on that yet. Steve Kerr has said that he hopes Draymond Green is back this road trip, which means either tomorrow or on Monday, or the Golden State Warriors close the road trip on Wednesday in Utah. It seems like it will be one of those three. I would guess it's before Utah, honestly. I think it's either tomorrow or on Monday where Draymond Green would make his return, and that will likely help. But the Warriors have a bigger problem defensively than just being without Draymond Green, because you look at what happened in that second quarter, and I have the stats here from the second quarter by themselves. The Chicago Bulls scored 45 points in the second quarter. They were 18 of 24 from the field and 7 of 11 from downtown. Kobe White himself was 4 of 5 from the field and 3 of 4 from downtown. The Warriors, it feels like they're playing an outdated style of defense. At least they were in that second quarter. The Warriors are so worried because of their lack of size that they just pack the paint. And it's no other team in the NBA does this. The Warriors are so scared by their lack of size that they pack the paint. And what it does is allows open three after open three after open three. And last time I checked, allowing 2 points is better than allowing 3 points. The Warriors should be defending the 3-point line and dealing with their weakness inside for the time being. And they did not do that at all in the third quarter, in the second quarter. They adjusted. Things felt a little bit better in the third, a lot better in the third. It kind of got a little ragged again in that fourth quarter. But for the Golden State Warriors, in that second quarter, it felt like you could point to maybe some effort and some energy and the team maybe being a little bit lethargic and slow to react, although that was better for the most part today. But defensively in the third, it felt like just a schematic thing more than anything. The number of times where Andrew Wiggins would sag off of a corner 3-point shooter, whether it was Alex Caruso or DeMar DeRozan or Kobe White, to help Kevon Looney defend against Nikola Vucevic, when Looney was in good position defensively and Vucevic makes the easy pass to the corner and Kobe White makes the three. It happened a number of times where Klay Thompson kind of just hanging out, standing around the paint while his man is open on the left wing for a three. It happened over and over again in the second quarter, and there is There is no team in the NBA in today's game that should be so worried about the paint that they're willing to give up open threes. 3-pointers beat you in today's game. You can live with giving up points in the paint. I mean, obviously, you don't want to give up gimmies time and time again. But if you're telling me either give up open 3 after open 3 or take your chances with Kevon Looney on Nikola Vucevic or, Andrew Wiggins against, DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine or Patrick Williams off the bench, give me Andrew Wiggins defending in the post over giving up a wide open 3. I think that's an adjustment that the Warriors needed to make, and they did to open up the third quarter, and that's what led to the offensive, outpouring of success. It was the defensive end first, allowing the Warriors to get out in transition, to push the ball, to force Chicago to have to match up kind of haphazardly, and it gave the Warriors a number of easy buckets and positive matchups that Kuminga took advantage of, that Wiggins took advantage of. We finally saw Wiggins' little fadeaway mid-range jumper off of a back down, a post entry. We finally saw him make a couple of those today, and I think a lot of that comes from the rhythm that you gain from playing solid defense, and he did that in the third after not doing it at all in the second quarter. All right, a couple things to get to here before we do sign off on a Warriors wrap-up. Up first is extending the 3-point line, and I'll have Sterling. You can just surprise me here with extending the 3-point line on a Warriors wrap-up.
Joseph feeds Jackson Davis. He wants to facilitate for Klay. Hand off to Klay. Shoots and hits! Klay Thompson! Another triple. He's got 24. He loves this building.
Yeah, that's Tim Roy, of course, on 95.7 The Game, calling one of Klay Thompson's 3-pointers. In this game, he was very good. He made 5 of them in the third quarter. He was 7 of 15 from downtown overall, finished with 30 points. Certainly fitting. Klay Thompson extending the 3-point line. Brought to you by West Coast Men's Health, successfully treating men for ED and chronic pain. Visit westcoastmenshealth.com. Klay Thompson does indeed love playing in Chicago. It's where he set the record for most made threes in a single game. That was back while Kevin Durant was a Golden State Warrior, but Klay Thompson likes playing in Chicago. It's unfortunate for both him and the Golden State Warriors that they only play in Chicago once a season. But Klay Thompson loves it at the United Center. He was good tonight. 30 points for Klay, 9 of 19 from the field, 7 of 15 from downtown. But maybe as impressive for Klay as his 3-point shooting, it was that he had 6 rebounds and 6 assists. A complete game for Klay Thompson, 36-6. I thought it was the best Klay Thompson has passed the ball all season. And it wasn't just like your easy assists where maybe Klay gets the outlet pass in transition and he throws ahead to Wiggins for a layup. Like, they were tough passes. There was one where it was kind of a pick and pop from the corner. Klay was the ball handler. I forget who was on the receiving end. It might have been Jonathan Kuminga, honestly. Or maybe it was Steph Curry. I can't remember exactly who was on the receiving end, but Klay Thompson has the ball in the corner. Either Kuminga or Curry, pardon me, I don't remember exactly who it was. One of those two come over to set the screen on his man in the corner. Klay Thompson uses the screen, takes a couple of dribbles into the paint, and then realizes the screener has popped out to the 3-point line in the corner, and Klay, with like eyes in the back of his head, kind of blindly throws it behind him for a wide open 3, and it goes in. That was just one of Klay's 6 assists. But Klay isn't necessarily known for his pinpoint passing, and at times has been not just at times, relatively often has been criticized for some of his decisions with the ball in his hands in terms of, should I shoot this or should I pass this or should I drive? Like, what should I do? Klay was nearly perfect tonight in terms of making those decisions. So it wasn't just the shooting for Klay tonight. Obviously, the Warriors need that. They would love that. If Klay makes 7 threes a night for the rest of the season, they're going to win a lot of basketball games because they are a different team when he's shooting the ball well. But his passing tonight stood out to me. And he also was on the glass with 6 rebounds. So a great game from Klay Thompson. And with that whole spiel, I guess I can make the case that Klay Thompson should be our hardest worker of the game. Brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, who works hard to serve the community. Are you looking for a career in law enforcement? Learn more about job opportunities at joinacso.com. Honestly, I have a number of guys to choose from because we just gave Klay Thompson the honor of extending the three-point line. I think I will go with Andrew Wiggins tonight, honestly. I could have easily went with Jonathan Kuminga, who had 24 points, 5 rebounds. But what puts it over the top for me, for Andrew Wiggins, 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists. It's similar to what I was talking about with Klay Thompson. Wiggins took shots at the right times. He was 8 of 13 from the field, but he played to the flow of the offense. And he made the right decision time and time and time again, and he had no turnovers. 8 assists, 0 turnovers. That's a Chris Paul stat line. This is the Chris Paul stat line from Andrew Wiggins. 17 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, no turnovers. He had a block and a steal, 8 of 13 from the field. He did everything the Warriors could have wanted from him tonight. And this Warriors team looks entirely different when he's playing that way. And if the Warriors get even anything like this from Wiggins on a consistent basis, it doesn't have to be 17, 5, and 8 every night, but they get this relative consistent energy and effort from him moving forward, this Warrior team will look different, and maybe he'll force the Warriors to reconsider potential trades. I think it's early to start thinking about that because I do believe Andrew Wiggins over the next 27 days, but a move might be made before the deadline. I do think Andrew Wiggins is playing for his future with the Golden State Warriors, but I also think that if he plays like this on a consistent basis, there's still certainly room for him on this roster. Because if he does all of the things that he did tonight, the Warriors would be hard-pressed to find a replacement for that. So perhaps if he puts more games like that together, the Warriors' plans at the deadline change entirely. And maybe instead of going after someone like Pascal Siakam, maybe the Warriors turn their attention elsewhere. I mean, Tim Kawakami was here on 95.7 The Game just yesterday on Willard and Dibbs and talked about how he's heard some rumblings from the Warriors that they might be interested in getting a 7-footer who can score. And one of the names that he threw out there was Nikola Vucevic, who the Warriors just saw tonight on the Chicago Bulls. Vucevic tonight had 14 points, 7 rebounds, and a couple of assists. He was fine, nothing special, but the Warriors certainly could use that. Now, likely Andrew Wiggins would need to be involved in that trade, but Wiggins can secure his future with this team if he plays like that night in and night out. I believe that 100%, and tonight was a good step for Andrew Wiggins, so as a result, he is our hardest worker of the game, again, brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. All right, that'll do it for Warriors wrap-up here on this Friday evening. The Warriors knock off the Chicago Bulls by a final score of 140-131. The Warriors right back in action. They're probably on the plane to Milwaukee right now, or I don't know, they gotta fly to Milwaukee. Can they take a bus from Chicago to Milwaukee? Whatever, they're en route to Milwaukee at the moment. They play tomorrow at 5. Coverage will begin at 4 here on 95.7 The Game. I'll have you covered with Warriors Live and Warriors Wrap-Up. But if you need some more Warriors talk before then, make sure you tune in to Warriors This Week beginning at 9 tomorrow morning. It'll be Dan Devone and Evan Giddings from 9 to noon. And then I've got you covered beginning at 4 as we get ready for Warriors and the Bucks in Milwaukee tomorrow, 5 o'clock tip, 4 o'clock pregame here on 95.7 The Game. But again, the Warriors win today. They snap a 2-game losing streak. They beat the Bulls by a final score of 140-131. Thanks to all of you for tuning in all night long. Thanks to Sterling Bennett across the glass pulling double duty tonight. My name is Mark Raney signing off. Have a great rest of your Friday evening and a wonderful weekend. The Warriors winners tonight. Final score here on 95.7 The Game, 140-131.
When people have a craving to explore new and traditional Asian cuisines, they